Most people still believe modern business is built around one thing: growth. More stores, more products, more users, more expansion, more market share. For decades, that was the corporate mindset. Companies were rewarded for growing as aggressively as possible. Investors wanted constant expansion, executives chased larger targets every year, and businesses that slowed down were often treated like failures. But something uncomfortable has quietly changed behind the scenes. Many corporations no longer fully trust growth itself, and that may be the biggest business shift happening in America right now. Because after years of economic shocks, inflation, supply chain problems, labor shortages, rising interest rates, and rapidly changing consumer behavior, businesses are starting to operate very differently than they used to. Publicly, companies still talk about innovation, confidence, and opportunity. But internally, many executives are focused on something far less exciting: stability. That's the new business reality nobody wanted to admit. The modern economy feels far less predictable than it once did. Consumer habits change faster. Trends appear and disappear overnight. Entire industries can suddenly be disrupted by technology, social media, or global events companies never saw coming. And after experiencing several years of non-stop uncertainty, businesses have become far more cautious than they appear on the surface. You can already see it happening everywhere. Companies are slowing hiring even when profits are strong. Retailers are keeping smaller inventories. Corporations are delaying expansion projects. Tech companies are cutting costs while still reporting billions in revenue. At first glance, this feels contradictory. If businesses are making money, why are they acting nervous? Because many corporations no longer believe good conditions will automatically last. That's the key change. Years ago, companies often made long-term decisions assuming the economy would remain relatively stable. Executives believed growth would continue if they expanded aggressively enough. Now businesses think very differently. Instead of asking, "How big can we get?" many corporations are asking, "How quickly can we adapt if things go wrong?" That single mindset shift is quietly changing almost every industry. Look at hiring. A few years ago, companies hired aggressively because demand looked unstoppable. Businesses expanded departments rapidly, especially in tech, retail, and corporate services. Then conditions changed fast. Suddenly, many companies realized they were carrying enormous payroll costs during a period of uncertainty. Layoffs spread everywhere. Hiring freezes followed. Executives learned an uncomfortable lesson. Large organizations become harder to adjust quickly. That's why many businesses today are intentionally staying leaner. Even profitable companies are operating with smaller teams than they would have considered normal a few years ago. To workers, this can feel confusing. A company reports strong earnings, yet still freezes hiring. Revenue grows, but teams remain understaffed. Internally, businesses see this as protection. They want flexibility if conditions weaken again, and this same logic is reshaping retail too. For years, major retailers focused on abundance. Stores carried massive inventories because businesses assumed demand would remain relatively stable. But recent disruptions changed that mindset. Companies realized huge inventories could suddenly become dangerous if consumer demand shifted unexpectedly. Now many businesses prefer smaller inventories with faster adjustments instead. That's why stores increasingly rotate products faster, test smaller product batches, and avoid overcommitting to inventory far in advance. Businesses would rather risk temporary shortages than get trapped with warehouses full of unsold products. Again, the goal is flexibility, not maximum scale. And nowhere is this shift more obvious than in the tech industry. Tech companies once operated with extreme optimism. Investors rewarded aggressive growth above everything else. Expansion was treated like proof of success. Now even major tech companies are acting more cautiously. Projects are being reviewed more carefully. Hiring is slower, spending is more selective. Companies are prioritizing efficiency and infrastructure over endless expansion. Even the AI boom reflects this new business reality. Yes, corporations are investing heavily in artificial intelligence, but not only because they want innovation. Many businesses believe AI can help them reduce long-term labor costs, improve efficiency, and operate with fewer vulnerabilities. That's not just ambition, that's defense. The goal isn't simply becoming bigger anymore. The goal is becoming harder to destabilize. And consumers are experiencing the effects of this shift constantly, even if they don't realize it. Why are subscriptions everywhere now? Because recurring revenue feels safer than unpredictable spending. Why are loyalty programs becoming more aggressive? Because retaining customers is less risky than constantly chasing new ones. Why are businesses pushing memberships, ecosystems, and bundled services? Because predictable income has become incredibly valuable in an unstable economy. Even pricing strategies reveal how cautious companies have become. Instead of massive, sudden price increases, many businesses now prefer smaller increases spread over time. They want to avoid shocking consumers while still protecting profits gradually. Why? Because corporations are increasingly afraid of volatility. Predictability has become one of the most valuable things in modern business, and that fear of instability is changing corporate behavior everywhere. Companies are simplifying operations, reducing unnecessary complexity, focusing on core products, avoiding oversized risks, pulling back from projects that feel too uncertain. Years ago, businesses often celebrated aggressive experimentation. Now many corporations prioritize controlled experimentation instead. Test small, adjust fast, limit exposure, move carefully. This may sound less exciting than the old era of rapid expansion, but many executives believe it's necessary now. Because modern business conditions can shift incredibly fast. Consumer trends move at internet speed. Public opinion changes overnight. Technology evolves constantly. Competition appears from unexpected places. One disruption can suddenly destroy forecasts companies spent years building, and corporations know it. That's why even successful companies often behave cautiously today. Strong earnings no longer automatically create confidence. Sometimes they create fear. Fear that the good conditions may not last. Fear that costs could suddenly rise again. Fear that consumer behavior could weaken unexpectedly. Fear that another disruption is always around the corner. And honestly, after the past several years, many executives probably feel justified thinking that way. The old business model relied heavily on stability. The new business reality assumes instability is permanent. That changes everything. It changes hiring decisions, investment strategies, product development, pricing models, supply chains, customer service, corporate culture itself. Businesses are no longer optimizing purely for maximum growth. They're optimizing for resilience. And perhaps the most important part of this entire shift is psychological. For decades, corporate America believed bigger automatically meant safer. Now many companies believe flexibility may actually be safer than size. That's a massive change in mindset. Because giant, rigid systems are difficult to adjust quickly when the economy becomes unpredictable. Smaller risks feel easier to manage, faster adjustments feel more valuable, and corporations increasingly believe survival depends on adaptability, not just scale. That may define the next era of business more than people realize. Not endless growth, not constant expansion, but controlled risk, flexibility, and stability in a world businesses no longer fully trust to remain predictable. That's the new business reality nobody wanted to admit.